Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's virtual public meeting hosted by Arapahoe County. My name is Leah Langerman, and I will be your moderator tonight as we talk about the I-70 at Airpark and Watkins Interchanges study. First, let me tell you how this meeting will work. This will be an interactive and informative session. There are several ways to engage with us over the next hour. If you're viewing online, submit questions below the video feed, and we will read those aloud for panelists to answer. If you joined by phone and would like to ask our panel a question, please press *3 on your phone, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take your question. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible today after our presentation. Please be aware this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project webpage by this Friday. Before we get into the presentation, let me introduce Jeff Baker.
Thank you, Leah. We're glad to have this chance to talk to all of you tonight, so thank you for joining us. Holding meetings like this makes it easier for people to get involved in county government. We will be returning to in-person public meetings soon, but we felt that this was a better way to reach more people under the circumstances. Whether you're participating online or on the phone, I hope you'll engage in the discussion tonight and learn more about how we're working on guided growth of our transportation system so that it supports an excellent quality of life in Arapahoe County. Our entire Board of County Commissioners wants to make sure that our county's transportation network serves our citizens as best it can. With this study, we're taking a proactive approach to transportation planning. We know that this area around the I-70 and Airpark and the I-70 and Watkins interchanges is growing and growing fast, not only in Arapahoe County, but also north in Adams County and west in Aurora. So it's important that we develop a plan now so that we can pursue funding and hopefully have improvements constructed before this area experiences congestion or safety issues. I'm pleased to be sharing this information with you tonight, and I know that our staff has worked extremely hard to getting this information out to you. I look forward to a productive discussion with everyone. This has been a very collaborative process. Arapahoe County has continuously coordinated with Adams County, the City of Aurora, the Colorado Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, and the two main developers near these interchanges. This ensures that all these agencies have these projects on their radar. It helps us to coordinate with other nearby transportation projects. It sets the projects up for future CDOT and federal highway approvals and better aligns the various stakeholders regarding funding the improvements. Now I'll pass it back to Leah.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. So our goal tonight is to provide you with an update on the I-70 at Airpark and Watkins Interchanges study. The study is nearly complete, but before the study recommendations are finalized, we need to hear from you. Tonight, we'll present the draft recommended improvements and phasing plans at each interchange. We'd like to hear what you think of them. On our call tonight, along with Commissioner Baker, is leadership from the Public Works and Development Department. Near the presentation, you'll hear from Brian Weimer, Public Works and Development Director, and in just a few minutes, Jim Kotzer, County Transportation Division Manager, will describe the study and existing conditions. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're going to get started with a presentation from our panelists, then we'll address the questions you submit during the second half of the call. There will be an opportunity for you to respond to poll questions as well. If you're joining on the phone, press *3 to ask a question, and if you're tuning in online, submit your questions there. We hope to get everyone's questions after our presentation, but first we want to lay out the draft recommendations. Now I'll turn the floor over to Jim Kotzer, County Transportation Division Manager, to provide an overview of the study and the need for improvements.
All right, well, thanks, Leah, for the introduction. And I just wanted to start in with the purpose of this interchange study, and it is to provide a clear path for implementation of improvements to the interchanges at I-70 and Airpark and I-70 and Watkins Road. We develop and analyze alternatives for interchange designs to devise recommendations that will help us understand if we need to preserve right-of-way as the area develops. We conducted an initial environmental study to identify potential impacts to the built and natural environment, which will inform a more detailed environmental study in the future. This study also produced preliminary design of the recommended interchange configurations, which allowed us to estimate how much the improvements would cost to construct. Throughout the study, we coordinated with key stakeholders to position the projects for funding. As Commissioner Baker mentioned, this area is rapidly growing. South of the I-70 Airpark interchange, the Sky Ranch development is planned. To the east, Prosper Farm is a large development planned south of I-70 that spans from Hazelmont Road to Watkins Road and beyond to Imboden Road. You can also see that many other developments are planned in the surrounding area within Aurora and Adams County. Our study forecasted traffic volumes based on assumptions that these developments would be occurring. We work closely with neighboring jurisdictions and developers to understand their projected timing so we could more accurately predict when improvements would be needed to the Airpark and Watkins interchanges. Next, I'll give you more details about the Sky Ranch and Prosper developments since they are the closest to the study interchanges. The Sky Ranch development is just south of the I-70 Airpark interchange. It has 775 acres with 4,000 dwelling units and more than 2.2 million square feet of commercial and mixed-use development planned. Approximately 300 homes have already been built. CDOT provides the access permit for the development and has limited Sky Ranch to constructing 774 dwelling units until the CDOT interchange feasibility study process is complete. This consists of completing this current study, a more detailed future environmental study, and obtaining approval from FHWA, which is the Federal Highway Administration. This is the plan for the Prosper development, which is much larger at 5,130 acres. The Prosper plan is for 9,000 dwelling units and 8 million square feet of commercial and mixed-use development. The Prosper development hasn't broken ground yet, but they plan to construct 450 homes in their first phase. They are planning their phases and roadway improvements in order to maintain adequate traffic operations. This study considered the regional context in planning the need for improvements into the 2040 and horizon and beyond. This includes the existing roadway network, as well as the interchanges and roadway connections that are planned to be constructed in the future by 2040. This map shows I-70 as a thick black line and the other existing major roadways as thinner black lines. The existing I-70 interchanges are shown with filled orange circles, and new interchanges planned to be constructed are open orange circles. In addition, new grade separations of the railroad and US 36 are planned at nearly all the major roads, shown with the yellow rectangles. New roadway connections are also planned, shown as dashed blue lines. The City of Aurora and Adams County plan to extend Monahan Road from I-70 north to 64th Avenue to create a continuous north-south connection in conjunction with adjacent development. Future development along 6th Avenue in the City of Aurora and Arapahoe County would also result in the eventual connection of 6th Avenue east from Powhatan Road to Watkins Road. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the existing interchanges, but I'll quickly review what exists today. The I-70 Airpark interchange is a typical rural diamond interchange. It has 2 through lanes on Colorado 36, which travels over I-70. There are single lane ramps to and from I-70 and the 2-lane frontage road, which is Colfax Avenue. The bridge over I-70 was built in 1997 and is in good condition from a road and bridge condition standpoint. The I-70 Watkins interchange is also a typical rural diamond interchange configuration. There are 2 through lanes on Watkins Road with an older narrow bridge over I-70. Single lane ramps lead to and from I-70, and although there is a frontage road to the south of I-70, it isn't continuous. The Watkins Road Bridge over I-70 was built in 1960. Both interchanges are currently serving traffic well, but we know improvements will be needed to handle the levels of traffic planned for the future.
Thank you, Jim, for that helpful review of the purpose of this study and for describing why the improvements will be needed. We do realize that there's a little bit of a delay in the slides tonight, so we're working on that and trying to get them to catch up as fast as we can. But in the interest of time, we will keep moving forward with what we had planned tonight. So the next thing was jumping to a poll question. So for those of you calling in, use your keypad to select your answer. And for those of you online, we'll provide instructions to send your comments at the end of the call, or you can visit the project webpage, and that is www.arapahoegov.com/I-70 Airpark-Watkins Interchanges. And we'll tell you that again later in the call. So here's the first poll question. We'd like to understand who we're hearing from tonight and what your connection is with the I-70 at Airpark and Watkins Interchanges study. So where do you live or work? I'll give you a few different options here. So press 1 for Fox Ridge Farm, press 2 for Sky Ranch, press 3 for Watkins, press 4 for Watkins Farm, press 5 for other area north of I-70, or 6 for another area south of I-70. I'll go through those one more time for you. So 1 for Fox Ridge Farm, 2 for Sky Ranch, 3 for Watkins, 4 for Watkins Farm, 5 for other area north of I-70, and 6 for other area south of I-70. So please record your vote now on the phone, and we'll share the results with you in a little bit. So next, you'll hear from Joe Hart, who is our project manager with David Evans & Associates, about the study process and the recommendations.
Okay, thanks, Leah, and thanks for everyone who's joining us tonight. First, I'd like to outline the process we used for this study. We began the study by analyzing existing conditions and forecast traffic volumes and traffic patterns, as Jim mentioned, in this large area, developing area. We were able to then estimate when improvements to the Airpark and Watkins interchanges would be required based on anticipated development trends. We established improvement alternatives for what would ultimately be needed in 2040 at each interchange, and as part of this evaluation, we estimated the useful life of phased improvements considering traffic projections and estimated costs. As a final step, we will be documenting the study recommendations in a final report that will be available on the project webpage this fall. Before we finalize the recommendations or report, we want to know what you think of these recommendations, and we'll get to that just in a few minutes, but first I'll explain how we evaluated the alternatives. The ultimate interchange alternatives were evaluated using a 2-level screening process. For the first level, we were looking broadly to see if the improvements would meet just the basic project goals. And then in the second level was a more detailed evaluation that considered many criteria, such as traffic operations analysis that considered traffic volumes served and vehicle delay. Safety analysis considered vehicle and pedestrian conflict points. We quantified the number of acreage of property impacts and other environmental factors and compared the conceptual level probable construction costs.
Thanks, Joe, for that overview of the study process and the alternatives evaluation. I'd like to quickly announce the results of our first poll, which was asked where you live and work. So let's see here. We've got, so far, most people are from Sky Ranch with 36% of the callers. Then Watkins and Fox Ridge Farm each have 18% of the callers, and Watkins Farm with 9%. Also, the other areas that are south of I-70 are making up about 19% of our call today. Thank you for sharing that information with us. And now I'll turn it back over to Joe to describe the study recommendations before we take questions from you.
Okay, so now I'll talk about the recommendations. As a first step, we looked at the location of the Airpark interchange. The existing interchange is several hundred feet west of the section line, which is the existing alignment of the newly constructed Monaghan Road to the south in Sky Ranch, and the existing and planned alignment to the north of I-70 and the Union Pacific Railroad. So if the interchange stayed in its current location, drivers would have to make a jog off of the north-south alignment. Based on the screening analysis, placing the new interchange on the Monaghan Road section line provides the most favorable location for an ultimate interchange. This alignment is consistent with city and county plans and provides preferable driver expectancy, safety, and operations, and can be implemented while maintaining traffic operations at the current interchange location. Then we looked at many interchange configurations at both Airpark and Watkins interchanges. For the sake of time tonight, I'll focus on describing only the alternatives that are recommended to move forward into future environmental study and further design. More work after this study still needs to be done to review the recommendations, and in the case at Airpark, choose between two remaining alternatives. So we have those two alternative configurations that are recommended for further study. One is a continuous flow interchange, or use the acronym CFI, and this configuration would serve the anticipated heavy northbound to westbound AM peak hour movement by allowing this traffic movement to shift to the west side of Monaghan Road as it approaches I-70 and then make a left turn to the westbound on-ramp. This slide zooms in a bit on so you can see more detail, and PDFs of these recommended improvements will be posted to the project webpage by this Friday so that you can take your time reviewing and zoom in even more and see the details. Other ramp improvements would function like a standard diamond interchange. In general, the travel lanes through the interchange would include two northbound lanes with the crossover displaced left turn lanes for northbound to westbound, and then two southbound lanes with one additional separated lane for the southbound to eastbound left turn. In addition to the vehicular improvements, the bicycle and pedestrian facilities would be included, including a detached multi-use path on the east side of the bridge over I-70 and a multi-use path on the east side of Monaghan, north and south of the I-70 ramps. The other alternative at Airpark is a partial cloverleaf with slip ramp. Westbound exit ramp traffic would slip off I-70 east of the interchange, with traffic bound for Monaghan Road crossing over Colorado 36 and merging with westbound Colorado 36 traffic. This configuration would also serve the heavy directional peak hour flows for northbound to westbound left turns with a cloverleaf loop ramp. Again, travel lanes through the interchange would include 4 northbound lanes with 2 lanes for the head to the loop ramp and 2 northbound on Monaghan. And there would be 3 southbound lanes with 1 lane for southbound to eastbound left turns and 2 lanes heading south down Monaghan Road. Again, pedestrian and bicycle facilities would be included with a separated multi-use path on the west side of the bridge over I-70 to avoid conflicts with the free-flowing vehicular traffic heading to the cloverleaf loop. Multi-use path would also be included on the west side of Monaghan, north and south of I-70.
Thank you, Joe. So that brings us to the next poll question. So please record your vote now on the phone and we'll share the results with you in a little bit. And our question is, if 6th Avenue was extended west from Powhatan to Monaghan and the Airpark interchange is improved also, which would you more often use? Press 1 if you would use 6th Avenue more, and press 2 for the improved Airpark interchange. So if 6th was extended and the Airpark interchange was improved, we're wondering which would you more often use? 1 for 6th Avenue, and 2 for the improved Airpark interchange. So now Joe will finish telling you about the recommendations.
Okay, so at the Watkins interchange, the analysis only resulted in one configuration being recommended, a partial cloverleaf alternative. This interchange configuration would accommodate the heavy anticipated northbound to westbound traffic movement by providing a cloverleaf loop ramp in the northeast quadrant of the interchange. The interchange would include the 4 northbound lanes that you see, with 2 lanes leading to the loop ramp and 2 lanes to Watkins Road North. There would be 2 southbound lanes and 1 additional lane for the southbound eastbound left turns. And again, pedestrian and bicycle facilities would be included, with a multi-use path on the west side of the bridge and a multi-use path north and south of the interchange. At Airpark, the continuous flow interchange construction is anticipated to cost $45.5 million, and the partial cloverleaf with slip ramp a bit more would be at $49 million. The Watkins partial cloverleaf interchange improvement is estimated at $52.7 million. So these are substantial costs for improvements that are not currently on the Denver Regional Council of Governments fiscally constrained plans, which means no funding is allocated for these interchange improvements that prioritize all of the transportation projects in the Denver metro area. Now that we have completed this study and know how much money is needed to be dedicated, Arapahoe County, in conjunction with development, metropolitan districts, and Adams County and City of Aurora, will be looking for ways to fund the interchange improvement construction. Since improvements may be needed as soon as 2025 based on development trends, we needed to consider implementing these ultimate improvements in affordable phases. We considered the elements that are most needed and would provide the biggest bang for the buck. At Airpark, an improved diamond interchange would be compatible with either of the 2 alternatives moving forward. This phased approach would allow the interchange to operate as a traditional diamond with signalized ramp intersections at Monahan Road. Phase 1 of the ultimate improvements are shown highlighted in gray on the screen. These first phase improvements would involve relocating the frontage road, building half the ultimate bridge, and providing north and south left turn lanes and signalizing intersections. The second phase, at a later date, would widen the bridge to the ultimate width and incorporate the necessary lanes for either the continuous flow interchange or the partial cloverleaf, whichever is the final recommendation. The bridge widening and cloverleaf ramp construction would not likely be necessary until Monahan Road was extended north of the interchange over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. At Watkins Road, very similarly, an initial diamond interchange configuration would also work well until the cloverleaf in the northeast quadrant is needed. This first phase as a traditional diamond would have a signalized ramp intersection with Watkins Road at both ramps. The phase 1 would involve relocating the frontage road to the south and building half of the ultimate bridge to provide north-south left turn lanes and signalizing those ramp intersections. This phase is expected to operate well through 2040. And the existing ramp, the westbound ramp, would then need to be reconstructed in a subsequent phase when the loop ramp was constructed. At both interchanges, phase 1 improvements are anticipated to cost approximately $30 million. And remember back, I was mentioning the ultimate interchanges were each estimated to cost in the $45 to $52 million range. So this is a bit more than half of the ultimate improvement cost. Funding has been one of the biggest challenges the county has faced in developing transportation system needs and addressing those to meet the community improvements. And historically, transportation improvement projects have been underfunded, which has delayed many needed projects.
Thanks, Joe. So we compiled the results of the earlier poll question for those of you who have answered on the phone, and I see we had a question from somebody online about how you could submit your responses. So feel free to type those into that online format there below where you're viewing, or you can always send those to us later on the project webpage. But out of the callers that we've heard from and one person online, it looks like about 58% of you would rather use the 6th Avenue connection. We only have one recommended configuration at Watkins. Some of you might have been wondering about that. So we won't have a preference poll regarding that Watkins interchange, but we'd still like to hear what you think of those recommendations. So later on, we'll give you information about other ways to comment and directions to access our project webpage. But now I'll turn it over to the County Public Works and Development Director, Brian Weimer, to talk about the next steps toward implementation before we take questions from you.
All right, thank you, Leah. Arapahoe County is very happy to have a clear picture of the improvements we need at I-70, Airpark, and I-70 and Watkins Interchange. This project is unique, and from that perspective, we're unique that with other interchanges we have done in the past. And typically when we have to do these type of studies, we already have issues. Those could be operational, safety, capacity. But with this study, we're looking into the future and identifying the solutions before we have those problems. The similarities that we have with this study with other studies is actually funding. So with that, and as Joe indicated, these upgrades are very expensive. So we're looking at various options, and we're trying to think outside of the box of what we can do to fund these improvements. We've looked at, is there a regional transportation authority? Are there impact fees? What might that look like? And we continue to coordinate with our partners, CDOT, Adams County, City of Aurora, the area developers, area property owners, to see how we might be able to fund these improvements. And so as we do that, we'll come up with some recommendations that we can spread that impact across all stakeholders. I will note, though, that Prosper and Sky Ranch, the nearest developers to these interchanges, are committing to paying their fair share associated with these improvements, as they have a great impact to the study area. And so those are commitments that we're willing to make here at Arapahoe County. I will note also that we need to have this funding in place so that we can move forward with some type of environmental clearance document. Without having that in place, we will not be able to clear these projects environmentally through the federal process. And since they access I-70, we will need to be able to do that. I think we've made a lot of progress with this study, and now we've identified that we need to move forward with some of the next steps, and one of those is identifying funding. Once we do that, we can complete the environmental documentation, as I talked about, for each individual interchange, and we would then be able to apply Federal Highway Administration for access onto I-70, which is going to be required since we're making modifications to these interchanges. Then the final design and then necessary right-of-way acquisition will take place prior to construction. There will be a public process all the way through these next phases of the project. So this is not the only time that you will have opportunities to provide input as we move forward to implementation. Once funding is identified, the entire process, taking it from where we are now to completion and implementation, will be anywhere between 2.5 to 5 years. And that's assuming that we have identified and have agreements in place for moving forward with the funding. So back to you, Leah.
Thank you, Brian. So we just covered a lot of information about the study recommendations. So I think now it's time we should take some of your questions. So as a reminder, if you're joining by phone, press *3 to ask a question. And if you're joining online, you can type your question in that box you see below the player. So our first question, we actually had a couple people ask a very similar question. So Phil and Michelle were both wondering, when will 6th Avenue be connected to Sky Ranch? It's a pretty big bottleneck not having that. So Jim, I'll hand that question over to you.
Yes, Leah, thank you for that question. And we heard a lot of comments about this connection being needed and desired whenever we did a key corridor survey with our transportation master plan. So we appreciate that feedback. This stretch of road lies within the city of Aurora. So Aurora is going to build this through development. So as development occurs, this will be built. And if you're living in this area, the development is building a little farther south of 6th Avenue. So it's dependent on the 6th Avenue, that this development just south of 6th Avenue. All that to say is, not exactly sure the exact year. However, the Sky Ranch developer has done some work, and there's work being done to do some design work along 6th Avenue. So there is a crossing of First Creek that will go under or be conveyed under 6th Avenue. So that work is being done now. So that's a good thing to accomplish, so that whenever there is money and development is occurring, that this can be built out rather quickly. And we do understand that this is an important connection for Sky Ranch, because it does provide a continuation to the west here, especially along 6th Avenue and the new extension of Stephen Hogan Parkway. So thanks for the question, and I wish I had an exact time and date for you, but that's what I have to offer for that question.
Thank you, Jim. So another online question comes from Ken. So he says, so all new development happening, and I get the need for Powhatan and Airpark and Watkins Roads, but what about Gun Club Road? It is an issue today with the heavy traffic and road wear. Are there any plans to address that Harmony and Sky Ranch uses Gun Club today? And I'll send this one over to Brian. And Ken also did have another extension to that question, and he noted also that they will use Gun Club more when 6th and Alameda open up as a through. So Brian, could you help answer that for Ken?
Yeah, I certainly can. Thank you. And that's a great question, and hopefully we have a good answer for that. And that is, we are in the process of studying Gun Club and Alameda to see what the improvements are in that location. We're working with our partners at the City of Aurora, and we'll be coming up with some recommendations of that. Hopefully the first of next year would be kind of when we're looking at that, but we're in the process of looking at those improvements and moving forward with that. So stay tuned with that, and we know that's an issue. It is a rural roadway currently. You know, that's the way it was designed, and there's a lot of development occurring. So we're in that transition to a more suburban-like area, and obviously the improvements are needed to support that. So with that, more information to come and the timing for that. Again, that project is not funded, but we will identify what the improvements are needed and the cost of those, and then start working on funding solutions in that area. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Brian. So we have a caller wondering how to view the slideshow. So we're very sorry for the difficulty we had tonight, technically getting that up on the web page for you, but we will have the slideshow and a recording of this meeting available on the project web page by this Friday. So you will be able to go back and take a look at all of the graphics that we had hoped to present to you tonight, so that you can step through those and take a careful look, zoom in as much as you'd like, and then be able to submit your comments on that project web page. So Let me give you the web page address again. It's www.arapahoegov.com/I-70 Airpark-Watkins Interchanges. And I'm horribly sorry for the length of that web link. So let's see. Next, we have another web question from Teresa. So she asks, how will Thunder Ranches be affected by construction, as we are one way in and one way out of the community? This is via the South Frontage Road. And I'll send that one over to Joe Hart.
Okay, I apologize that you weren't able to see that in the slide presentation, but when you are able to download the slides, the partial cloverleaf alternative illustrates how the South Frontage Road will be realigned as part of development roads within the Prosper development. And the South Frontage Road is anticipated to be shifted with its intersection with Watkins Road about as much as a quarter mile south of the southern ramp intersection. And that then would extend east and curve down into the Prosper development, and the south, or the I-70 frontage road would then intersect that and head back up to its alignment along the south side of I-70. And that is all part of the development roadway planning for some of the initial phases of the Prosper development. So that would come first, so that is realigned before any of the construction would impact the existing interchange.
Thanks, Joe. So we have another question, which I will send to Brian Weimer, and it was online asking about the power source for Sky Ranch. So the main power source for Sky Ranch is on the curb where Airpark Road and Monaghan meet. How will construction of the interchange in this area, and how will this affect the Sky Ranch residents in regards to power outages?
Thank you for that question. And, when we look at improvements, we always have to deal with utilities. And part of those utility clearances come as part of the final design. So that is something that we will evaluate as part of the final design, and would not deal with and make sure that the phasing of any of those relocations would occur such that we would not have any power outages in that area or power being down. That being said, I guess there's always can be that, but as part of the design, we have to evaluate what those impacts are, account for impacts and relocations of utilities, and with that, coordinate with those utility providers to ensure that the relocations are done before power is shut off. And typically with something that large, a relocation would occur and then a transfer over of the existing circuits, if you will, or the existing power to the new relocated services would occur. And we like to do that prior to any construction beginning on the actual interchange. So that would be the plan moving forward, and that would be finalized, as I said, during the final design and construction phasing process of the project, which needs to occur down the road, as I explained earlier, in that 2.5 to 5 year time frame, pending some type of funding arrangement being established. So hopefully that gives you some assurance that we'll be looking at that and taking that into account. But thank you for that question, and it's always good to have that because we'll put that into our notes for the project as a comment, and those will be referenced as we get into the next phases.
Thanks, Brian. So next we'll take one of our callers' questions. Joe has a question about a few pending improvements. Joe, go ahead and let us know what your question is.
I was wondering, if the 6th Avenue exchange or the 6th Avenue extension would be coming sooner or coming before the I-70 Airpark interchange, and is the bridge there going to be relocated and realigned with Monoghan Road?
Okay, you've got a two-part question. So we had mentioned earlier in the presentation that 6th Avenue is that stretch from Sky Ranch over to Powhatan Road is in the city of Aurora, and as development of the Harmony development moves forward, that will be coordinated by that developer with the city of Aurora. So it's a lot to do with the timing of that development as it moves north up to the 6th Avenue alignment. And I know Sky Ranch development has been in discussions with the city and the Harmony developer and are working on developing plans for how the road will cross over First Creek. So there is activity going on in the planning stages, but no specific timeline. So we're not sure if that will occur before the interchange. Then the other part of the question was, will the interchange line up with Monaghan Road South that's been constructed in the Sky Ranch development? And yes, that is our recommendation, that the interchange location move. It's about 400 or 500 feet approximately to the east of where it is today, and that will allow that interchange to stay operational while the new bridge is built on the section line alignment. And then that will be planned so that it could then head north and up and over the railroad tracks ultimately to connect with Monaghan, that is planned to extend all the way up to the south side of Denver International Airport. So it's an important to stay on that section line alignment for such an important future major arterial.
Thanks, Joe. So next we'll take another online question, and actually a couple of you are asking about the same thing. So we have a question wondering, how do these designs address the issue when I-70 is closed at Airpark? So when I-70 is often closed at Airpark due to weather, that makes it difficult or impossible to reach Sky Ranch and creates a large amount of traffic. So especially given that 6th Avenue has no specific schedule to be completed, how will this project affect that? I'll hand that over to Jim.
Yeah, great question. And in this process, we did come to understand that CDOT does close the interstate here at this location, and I could imagine that there is a bunch of traffic that is piled up on the ramps and even on the bridge. So the design will definitely consider that. Of course, with the widened bridge, there's a little more storage. However, we will reach out to CDOT and make sure that we're coordinating where the gates are located, any turnarounds that are needed, and things like that. With Monaghan, this is looking way down the road, with Monaghan being a continuation to the north and hopefully to the south, and even with 6th Avenue and Powhatan having more continuity, we would hope that there'd be less stacking or less queuing of citizens at this interchange. But this will be coordinated with CDOT, and we don't know if that closure will move farther to the east as population increases. So more to come on that, but yes, we are in conversation with CDOT about these type of things.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Next, another online question here. Eric is wondering what is going on with the Bennett interchange. So Brian, could you please answer that for Eric?
I certainly can, Eric, and thank you for asking. Unlike these interchanges, the improvements at the Bennett interchange, and I'm assuming that is State Highway 79/Converse that you're referring to, and if it is, that interchange improvements to the ramps has been and is funded. Design is currently going on by CDOT, of which Bennett, Arapahoe County, Adams County have all participated funding, and CDOT has participated funding in that. I don't have a particular schedule at this point in terms of construction, but I know it's in design, and CDOT's taking the lead with that along with the town of Bennett.
Okay, thanks very much, Brian. So I've got another one for you, Brian. A couple people are asking online, how will this affect Quincy Avenue?
Okay, and that's kind of a difficult question without getting into a lot of details, but I will say that the modeling that has been done to identify what the travel demands are, both on Watkins as well as here at Airpark, have taken into account travel demand and folks traveling down to Quincy Avenue. We have completed a design for Quincy from the existing interchange or intersection at Gun Club to the west, or to the east, excuse me, and that goes all the way out to Watkins Road. And with that, then, it shows ultimately what the 2040 volumes and the improvements that are needed associated with that. They will be phased over time. So the first phase of that would occur out to about Powhatan, and then ultimately out to Watkins Road. Going east beyond Watkins Road, we still see Quincy being a 2-lane facility, but it will need to be improved. And that would probably be in the neighborhood of 2040, kind of between the Powhatan and Watkins intersections. Between Powhatan and Gun Club is a more immediate need, and that would most likely be in the neighborhood of, we're looking maybe 5 years plus or minus, but there's really no funding identified specifically at this point in time. But we know that there's an issue, and we're working with our partners at City of Aurora associated with that, primarily getting us out to Harvest. That's where we're starting to see the impacts right now and what improvements can be done to accommodate those impacts. So those are other improvements along Quincy, and hopefully that answers your question in terms of what's being planned and what we're looking at.
Thanks, Brian. So before we take more questions, I'd like to remind you that we'd love for all of you to stay engaged with these projects. So please, if you're not already on our mailing list, please join the project contact list so you can receive our project notices. We'll let you know if there are any future engagement opportunities, actually when there will be, as soon as these move forward. So you can do that by visiting the project webpage, and I will state that one more time for arapahoegov.com/I-70 Airpark-Watkins Interchanges. Or you can also write me an email. My email address is leah.langerman, and I'll spell that for you, leah.langerman @deainc.com. Or you can also call me at 720-225-4651. So please send your comments by September 8th so we can consider them before the improvement recommendations are finalized. So now we'd like to get back to your questions. And as a reminder, press *3 if you'd like to ask a question if you're on the phone. And if you're joining online, keep on typing them in the box below the player. So next we'll take an online question. So how long until Prosper and Sky Ranch are fully built out? Joe, I'll give that one to you.
Okay, that's a good question, and probably no good answer for that, because the development trends change over the years. And right now, the Sky Ranch development has a good product, and they're really selling a lot of homes. And so there's a pent-up demand to get the interchange improvements underway so that more homes can be built in that development area. There's also been discussion we've heard from the Sky Ranch developers that commercial developers are interested in the commercially zoned portions of the project, and so that part of the project might take a little bit longer, but anticipating that improvements, all of the development improvements could possibly be built by 2040 at the rate that things are headed. You know, the Prosper development, you don't see any progress yet. There's a lot of planning going on with utilities, but nothing has broken ground for Prosper, so that may be a little bit longer. It's much larger development area and could take well beyond 2040 for a full build out of all of that acreage.
Thanks, Joe. So we have another online question from Don, and I will send this one over to Brian Weimer. So he says, immediate installation of 6th Avenue between Powhatan and Monaghan Roads would provide significant relief for Sky Ranch, especially when I-70 experiences closures and the Airpark exit is jammed up when stranded motorists. Is there a way to do this part sooner?
I think as Jim talked about, you know, those are things that we're looking at. We do have a impact fee associated with this area, and there is parts of 6th Avenue that are included as part of that impact fee. So that could potentially be an opportunity for that. There would need to be agreements between developers west of kind of, let's call it Sky Ranch, and how do we connect that, and such that, you know, if the money's up fronted to make that connection and they're not ready to develop yet and construct that improvement, so that we could get a reimbursement and they don't get a free ride. That's one of the things that we would be concerned with. And so that would be one option of moving that forward. And so we'll be looking at those alternatives and talking with the city of Aurora, where most of that development is occurring, and to see if we can move that forward. And then it becomes a business decision as to where do we get the biggest bang for the buck. Is it a 6th Avenue? Is it the interchange? Is there a need for both? And what is the timing of that relative to the other developments in the area and partners that would need to participate in that construction? So hopefully that helps answer the question. I know it's not a definitive answer, but those are the things that we would have to work out in terms of making that a more immediate improvement.
Thanks, Brian. So I believe we've addressed all of the questions that you had tonight for the callers and people online. So as a reminder, we'll post a copy of this recording to our website, the project webpage. It will be up by Friday. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight, taking the time to listen and submitting your questions. And this concludes our virtual public meeting for this evening. So as a reminder, we'll provide a written summary, and we'll have some answers from the project staff experts. If you have any other questions, please submit those online. And thank you all for participating, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.